Hey, welcome back to the Rank Boost Media podcast, where we dig into practical, no fluff stuff strategies to help businesses thrive online. Today, we're diving into something every local business cares about is SEO. So we're not talking vague, confusing advice. We're talking about real strategies that help you show up where it matters most in local searches. So I recently came across Greg TM Blast on TikTok. And what caught my eye wasn't, flashy videos or over the top claims, it's actual results. He's been helping businesses show up on those local search grids, turning them green and helping clients get found and grow. So Greg, thanks for coming on, and I'm excited to hear your take on what's working for local SEO clients right now.
Yeah, that sounds good. Great. Great to be on.
So what do you have that before we get into the nitty gritty of SEO, I'd love for you to share about your journey and how did you get into SEO and what made you focus on helping local businesses specifically.
So it began in college. So I graduated in 2012, but in 2011, I built a website for two of my roommates who were photographers. They were doing local gigs around the Rhode Island and Massachusetts area. And I didn't really know about SEO, but I had an idea about building a website, running Google ads for terms like wedding photographer, senior photographer, etc. And we actually got Make-A-Wish Foundation as one of our clients, which was crazy because we were just college kids. And they found us and we went out to the event. And then after college, I got into my first SEO agency, and it was difficult because I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. So I took on, my dad was part of the local Knights of Columbus in our town, and I asked if I could work on the website to rank for hall rental and party hall venues and everything else like that. And they only got a couple inquiries per month, but then when I took over, it went to about one per day. And I saw the value of local SEO from both my experience in college and then just college kids getting just money for whatever now, and then turn into helping a nonprofit get more hall rentals to give back to the community. So I really saw the value of what local SEO could do. And then, over the next handful of years, I've kind of gone between paid search and national SEO and international SEO and a lot of other, areas. But then really ever since the Google helpful content update that took place, I guess it was a year ago now, it really made me refocus my efforts and say, okay, I want to go back into local and not worry too much about just producing, content and just working with international companies. I really want to go back to the localize and help the small business owner, because ultimately that's who I am as well. So I can really relate to their pain points and their struggles, and then what local SEO could do for their business. So kind of in a long circle way, it started off in college and now I'm kind of back at it again.
That's cool. I like that. And I agree with you. I'm the same on helping the small businesses. That's where I relate to the most myself. And so let's dive a little bit into the basic for someone who doesn't know about SEO. What is local SEO and why is it so important that businesses get found? So other people looking for their services, obviously we know they want to get found, but if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a few friends who have they're in the medical type of space, and they have a great social media account where they show before and afters, or they have a great active newsletter that goes out to their customers that they treat. But one of their biggest things I always hear is how do we get new customers, new people to discover us? And what I've been doing a lot of late has been using a tool called Local Falcon to run a scan for terms like, let's say, like Botox or lip filler or anything else like that as an example, and say if you serve a 10 or 15 mile radius and you search for that keyword, you essentially only rank in your parking lot. The second you go about a quarter mile in any direction, you're not on page one. We know from Local Falcon study, majority of the impressions and clicks go on just the top three map pack listings. So you can understand that even as a consumer, you're not going to really go into, what's the 15th position and then I'm going to call them. You're probably only going to call the first couple and see if you can get in for a free consultation or just to inquire more about price. So I think really just to connecting that as you can have an awesome product, but or service, but ultimately if you're not attracting someone who's never heard of your business, but they're searching for a particular pain point to solve and they're not finding you, ultimately they're going to go with somebody else.
Agreed, agreed. That's so true, right? If they're invisible, they might have something great, but if they can't be seen, I mean, even me, as a homeowner looking for services, I go right to Google and type in plumber near me, and I'm not clicking past like the first maybe five, right? Essentially top three. So let's talk a little bit about, let's help our listeners get a little practical. Like, what are the most important things you think that a local business should focus on to improve their rankings and get found in their local area?
Well, so first is Google My Business has something called a search. They show you the search queries that trigger your account, and I think that's a great starting point because a lot of times you can see the last 6 months of data. And what I encourage everyone is to, because you'll lose that data after the 6 months, will go to the next month, and you lose the previous month. So I always recommend to go through and say, okay, this is how many calls I'm getting from Google My Business, this is how many website clicks, and these are the queries that are triggering the account, because then you have an idea of exactly who is finding your account currently. Then I always recommend to use a tool like Local Falcon and say, if you're, let's say, a kitchen contractor and you're saying that is like the primary thing that we offer, and I get about 10 or 15 impressions per month, you might think that's very low. Maybe the area that I'm in is not that interested in my particular service, but if you use a tool like Local Falcon, you run the scan and say it's because I'm not on page one anywhere, but I know how valuable this is because this is primarily what I do. Getting that baseline setup of, okay, but I'm on a position 9 or 10. My website, I haven't really updated that in a while. I haven't updated my Google My Business account. And then I'm not even on places like Bing Maps or Apple Maps. You can really start to think of, okay, these are just small areas I can kind of carve out and say, I have my website that I could, update a bit more about, kitchen contracting. I have my Google My Business account, which I can start to be more active on, see if I can improve the rankings when I use my Local Falcon scan. I can not ignore Bing because almost everyone seems to. So I can actually use that as my advantage as, if I can get just more impressions from there, that's still the same audience I'm going after for kitchen contracting. And then Apple Maps too, which is, again, it's a newer platform. A lot of business owners don't even know about it because they don't really think about it too much, which is fine. But it's more of you can get listed there. It's another signal that all search engines use to, it's called NAP, name, address, phone number, and they look for more places that kind of just confirm this is the name, this is your address, this is your phone number, these are your hours, this is your website URL. I think all those are just really good starting points to say if I'm really serious about getting more clients for kitchen contracting, then I should start to take advantage of the platforms that I could be on.
Yeah, and it's true with Google Business Profile. If you just set it and forget it, right? Google thinks you're dusty, right?
Mm-hmm.
So also, it is a big one, right? Google Business Profile. So what do you think is the common mistake that owners make when they set it up or managing their own GBP?
Well, okay, so interestingly enough, I've come across some business owners that have done some shady Google My Business listings, mainly because I think it worked more in the past. I won't say who it was, but somebody reached out to me and they had multiple Google My Business accounts, even though they only had one actual location. And when they came to me and I had access to their accounts, I realized there were some errors within all of their accounts where Google was not allowing me to update things like their category, their service areas, their hours, because they kept coming up with there was an error, something like that. And I was initially confused because I thought, okay, well, this is verified. I don't understand why I can't update any of these things. And then when I spoke more with the client and they let me know, oh, these were just kind of created just so I can rank in these areas. I think that is a big misconception now where it's like if I want to rank in like 5 different parts of New England, have a location in Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, etc., and I'm going to like list off my business in all these places. Again, if you don't have those other signals as well, it kind of raises a flag. Google sees this profile as kind of a little suspicious, maybe not exactly 100% verified, and in the way of like an actual like Better Business Bureau link or any other site that talks about this address, and then
Right.
the rankings drop, and then they look at that and say, well, I need to hire somebody to kind of fix this. But in reality, it's not going to be fixable because really you only have one actual location and you're kind of pretending you have four more. So for me, that was a real example or a current example that I came across where that's a real misconception, which is I'm going to just create a bunch of profiles and go after a lot of different areas. And I'm going to just try and sort of, if I see success there, I'm going to just keep adding more and more. And now I have so many, Google My Business profiles when in reality, you really only should have one, which is where your location is.
Right. And Google has gotten smarter and smarter, right? Definitely have to be careful not to lose your profile and get suspended, right?
Mhm.
So obviously we know, right, photos, reviews, even Q&A sections. I think we see a lot of businesses that don't have, they're not doing this regularly. Google clearly wants fresh, active content. So how much of a role do you think all of those play in their rankings?
So this came from the DOJ thing with Google and Chrome, and do they use click data? And they do. And a lot of SEOs have always said this in the past. And Edge is the same way with Microsoft. So it's not just like a Google thing. It's every browser and every search engine because they want to get that data that they can track and dwell time and how much people interact with profiles. And it makes sense because it's probably similar with social media too, where you want to find something that resonates with what you search for. Here's why I bring up all this is that, as you said earlier, if I'm searching for an HVAC near me or a plumber near me, coming across a profile that hasn't got a review in a year, hasn't updated their updates, there's no question and answers, there's no photos of the team, everything's just like a stock photo. I'm going to probably overlook it because I'm thinking I'm going to waste my time if I call. Who knows if I'm calling someone's personal number, they probably won't even pick up. So it's just a waste of my time. Whereas another business that is actively getting reviews, responding to the reviews, posting updates of projects that they're working on, photos of the team, etc., would entice me to then to click on their profile because I'm spending more time now looking. Oh yeah, here's some recent reviews. I'm spending time looking at this. Then when I make the call to action, like clicking the website button or the call button, I think those are signals. I think those are especially on Google Chrome. I think those are signals that goes into it. So whenever an SEO says you got to keep your profile updated, yes, in the sense of you want to keep it updated for sure, but think about it from what makes sense, which is a user who's currently looking at your profile will probably spend more time looking at it if you're keeping it up to date. And I think those signals are indirect ranking signals for Google to really say, okay, this is a profile that maybe we should potentially show a little bit more and see if people continue to spend time on it. And I think Google's gotten much better at that signal. Whereas I think in the past, a lot of times people would say, well, I had the most reviews and like therefore I should just rank and I'm going to set it and forget it. I think that is no longer the case.
Yeah, we've heard, if you're not getting a review every 30 days, right? Google looks at you as not being active, right? So I think encouraging, regular reviews and even look at what your competitors, how many reviews they're getting. I think everything matters, right? In the whole circle, as well. So tell me, you've gotten some great results for your clients. I've seen and you're on TikTok. If you want to let them know where you are on TikTok, you're here on YouTube. Also, it's just Greg at TM Blast. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so could you share a story or two of like a client recently that you've helped turn green and what was the impact for them?
So I've been working with a client in New York City since right before COVID. We started probably in February or January of 2020. And actually, they found me on Reddit because I answered their question. I wasn't looking to get a client. They just asked a question about local SEO, and I just answered them. They private messaged me, and here we are many years later still working together. And when they reached out to me initially, they had about one visit or so per day to their website, and they were now ranking in the map pack. Fast forward now, all these years later, and the map has turned greener for their core terms. We're on Bing Maps and Apple Maps. We've done such a great job that we've added things like a chatbot now to their website because they were getting too many phone calls. They actually had to pause me for about 2 months because they had to hire more staff
That's a
because they were
good
getting too
problem
many
to
leads
have.
that were coming through. Yeah, and then they opened up a second location in New York City as well. Now, I'm not saying SEO was the only reason, but I will say that it was a large part of it because before they were relying very much on Google Ads, and obviously with Google Ads, there's a cost per acquisition, and with anything, it goes up in price. So with local SEO, it really transformed their entire business. I always use them as the example because just seeing how much that changed for them for hiring, staff, website updates. They completely redid their whole website because they had more, customers coming through. So they were able to reinvest back into their business. And then they opened up a second location. All in a matter of a couple of years is just phenomenal. So that's the example that I always give. It just came off Reddit, and then now we've been partners since.
It's amazing. And they've saved money on having to do ads.
Yeah, and they've been able to reinvest that money in different areas too, as I said, like the website. But yeah, I mean, what I always tell them or any of my local SEO clients is definitely if you can, anything that you're getting from organic search from local, if you can reinvest that back into another platform, like let's say like a newsletter blast, or getting on a local chamber of commerce and having a partnership with somebody there to do a social media blast for your company or anything, use that extra available funds that you might have not had in the past because you were over relied on, let's say, Google Ads, and use that for more amplification in other places as well. So I'm very keen on driving that conversation as well, which is this is great from local SEO, but let's continue to push this and find other avenues to grow your brand.
Yeah, build that brand awareness for sure. So tell me about, let's talk about, for the business owners listening, SEO can feel, overwhelming. There's so many different aspects to it. And I know from talking to small business owners, off page, on page, local, and all these different things, especially if they're not tech savvy, what's one thing they can do today to start improving their local SEO rankings?
Local Falcon's my answer. I came across that, I don't even know, maybe it was a year ago or something. And I just think the visual and seeing the timeline progression of where you are. And then, they give some AI summary, suggestions, which I think are helpful for anyone that's new. These AI suggestions are things like, hey, some of your competitors have secondary categories that you don't. So you might want to test that and add something. Or they might say you've had no reviews in the past, 30 days, or maybe you have not done any updates in the last, week or so. These are just small suggestions that, again, everything we've talked about, you can try and implement, rerun the scan and say, oh, I did notice that the dot went from position 12 to position 7. That looks good. I'm still not on the top 3, so I'm not getting the improvements there. But what if I continue that process? What if I continue posting more? What if I add different service areas? What if instead of only going after the big metros, I'm going to just focus on the smaller towns initially and say if I can still get more phone calls and website clicks and customers, that's the ultimate goal. Instead of saying I want to rank in this metro city that has the most people, let me focus on the smaller towns around and say these dots I might be able to flip a little bit more by, again, getting on local chamber of commerce sites, getting on local directories in that city, and trying to build out a presence on there. So what I think for any business owner that's kind of starting off is very much just use a tool like Local Falcon, get the baseline of how you rank, and then start to make a little bit of change and then rerun the scan and see if it's starting to work. I think that is, otherwise, if you're looking at everything and saying, I got to spend 20% of my time doing technical fixes and 10% link building and then 30% content writing, you're just going to do a lot of stuff and then you're going to get frustrated because nothing seems to be doing anything for your business. And then ultimately you have the sour taste of SEO in your mouth, and then you say, I'm never going to do this ever again. So I just say just focus on what matters, and ultimately that's just your local rankings.
Right, keeping track. I mean, it's great to see the visual and to be able to see even the littlest needles moving, right? You're doing the right things. And obviously if we're not tracking it, we can't know what's happening. So it's definitely very important. So, I know you talked about Local Falcon as one of your top tools. We'll do a quick couple more questions before we wrap up. So what do you think is the biggest SEO myth that drives you nuts?
Yeah, I think so I worked with somebody recently, and it was kind of an interesting situation because they had an SEO on their team, and they're looking to retire, and they kind of brought me on, and we had a different mindset of how this worked. So this is probably just what comes top of mind now. I think the biggest myth is just waiting weeks to see something, right, and then act. And the reason why I kind of say that is, when I first started my agency back in 2020, when I got out of college, there was this mindset of, SEO could take 6 to 12 months to see any improvement. And I never liked that because, again, I was doing some local stuff for the Knights of Columbus and I was seeing results. My photography side business, that was, improving too. We weren't waiting 6 to 12 months to see some type of improvement. Right. And I never liked that answer. And I think that's such a big myth still that's out there where people will say, if you make a local page for a service, let's say in New York City, and you look at it and say, oh, we really should add photos to this. It would help with our rankings, or we should add a video with video schema markup, or we should improve the content because there's no headers, very basic stuff. Yeah. But to have a mindset of let's just give it a few weeks and then let's just see what happens. That's such a myth. I think it's pretty clear once you can see your rankings kind of stabilize that it's okay. I'm probably gonna be stuck on page 3. I'm not gonna magically jump to page 1. I need to keep making changes, and this kind of goes in with the local stuff, which is you got to keep making updates, questions and answers, adding photos, getting reviews. I think there's just the mindset of let's just wait a few weeks and just see what happens. I just can't subscribe to that.
Right. I think I tend to agree with you on that also. It's a constant updating, right? It's just like your social media. And I know a lot of small business owners feel overwhelmed with having to do all of the things. But of course, in this world of attention and building awareness, all the things do matter. Like you said it earlier, is like clicking on the website. Does the website work, right? All these things can deter people from your business. I know that I go to their social media, I look at their Instagram, I'm like, oh, are they doing anything? Have they posted anything in the past few months, weeks, whatever it is, or are they posting weird things? That can happen too. So all about building your brand. I think you had some great insights and some great advice. It's been a very practical and value packed conversation, and I know our listeners are going to walk away with some actionable insights as well. So before you go, let's just remind everyone where you are on TikTok and your website.
The website is tmblast.com, and it's funny, for TikTok I gotta look it up. I don't actually remember my handle. It says it's so it's at, and then it's tm_blast_SEO. I'm very new to TikTok, so like I get it. It's not as cool as others, but I'm just learning and I'm excited to, like the other day I learned how to make the cover on the TikTok Reels, which I know is like very basic, but I learned it, and for me, just always learning, that's
Yeah.
the most important thing.
Well, I think as all of us small business owners, it's always a constant learning process. And as things evolve, right, we've brought AI into all the mess, a couple years ago, and now that's crazy evolving. So I do finally, before we do go, if there's one golden piece of advice you could give to the small businesses out there to turn their grids green, what would that be before we go?
So obviously we talked about the profiles, but I think the real secret and what I've seen success is to Google the keywords. So let's pretend you are a kitchen contractor in Saratoga Springs, New York. Google that and see if any directories show up, because this actually happened with one of my clients. We noticed that there was a directory out here in Saratoga Springs that we can get listed on. So not only was this a great backlink that passed SEO juice, but it also passed referral traffic and brought them customers. And of course, it showed their name, address, and phone number. And those relevant signals is, I think, such a differentiator, because a lot of times most of the competition was not even on this directory, yet it was on page one of Google. They got the backlink, they got the juice, they got the referral traffic, they got customers, and I think it also tied into their local SEO rankings because it was a very powerful, relevant backlink that once again said their name, address, phone number, website link, etc. So just Google the keywords you want to go after and look at the SERP and see if there's any directories there, like a chamber of commerce or a local city. You may want to get listed on those.
Link juice. I like that you said that. Link juice. Definitely helpful. So, Greg, thank you so much. I think we could go on forever talking about this, but thanks for joining us today and sharing your expertise. It's been awesome having you on. And to everyone watching, I hope you're walking away with a clearer understanding of local SEO and how it can make a real impact on your business. And if you found today's episode helpful, be sure to hit subscribe, leave us a comment, and share it with someone that could use a little SEO clarity in their life. Until next time, keep taking those small, consistent steps to get found and get chosen and grow your business. See you soon, everyone. And thanks, Greg.
Thank you.